Well, good morning, everyone. I'm never sure how to start these talks of mine. I'm sure a lot of people have had enough of economists because, let's face it, very few people saw the downturn coming, least of all economists. Contrary to most economists that might do something a little bit depressive, I'm the exact opposite. I think you'll hear quite an upbeat story today. It also may actually also be a little bit controversial. I'm a bit nervous about some of what I might show you, really, because it's going to be a little bit different. I think the best thing to do is to just get started, and we'll see how we go from there. The central theme of what I'm going to do today is to show you that cycles repeat. The topic of the talk, actually, as it's named in the brochure there, Sarah, it says How to Read the Tea Leaves, the World of Economic Indicators. It's probably more correctly titled The World of Economic Cycles. I'm a specialist in business, commodity and real estate cycles. That's what I've studied for years and years. It's my contention that cycles repeat so that we can gain a very good idea of the bigger economic picture in order that we as business people can make better and more profitable business decisions. So that's the central theme of today. The presentation itself, I think the best way to introduce myself is just to talk about the 18-year property cycle, which is what I study. Then we'll talk about the commodity price cycle, and then we'll talk about what this means for you and your business. The first couple of minutes, you might wonder a bit, what's this guy doing up here? But give me a couple of minutes, because I will draw it all together after 15 or 20 minutes or so, and you'll see where I'm going with it all. So let me get underway. I read a book in 1991. It's a long time ago now. And the book was written by Fred Harrison called The Power in the Land. And in that book, Fred's a UK author. That book was written in 1983, and that book made a forecast for the UK property market that said it would peak in 1989 and then have a 4-year recession, quite a serious recession. Now, that interested me because, as you can tell from the accent, I'm actually from down under, from Australia. And I opened my office in 1991 in Melbourne, Australia. And Melbourne at the time was going through a very deep depression. And when I was reading through that book, myself as a forecaster, I've always had an interest in markets. I thought to myself, I began to think, well, if somebody can forecast the markets like that, I started to see dollar signs, and I thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And if we get another 18-year cycle, I'll be able to retire. So that was good enough for me, so I set about doing a whole heap of study. Now, Fred wrote the book about UK real estate, so myself being not a cynical person, but certainly a sceptic in most of what I see around the world, I thought I'd better study some of this myself. So I went ahead and, cast your minds back to 1991. This is pre-internet, it's pre-Google, it's pre the old servers, so it's going back into the dinosaur age. It's very, very hard to remember now what it was like in 1991 to do a whole heap of research. So I went ahead and researched the US market, and I found once I got a hold of some interesting books. I was interested in the real estate, the land market. I found, to my absolute astonishment, and what we're graphing here, obviously the time frame along here, starting at 1800, and we're graphing here actually to try and explain it, in 1800 it was the US federal government received all of the lands that the 12 states had ceded to the US federal government, and it was after 1800 that the US federal government started selling off its real estate to anybody that wanted to settle in the US, or the people who were already there. So we're charting the number of the acres of land sold by the US federal government after 1800. And to my absolute astonishment, I found that the US went through a bout of land or real estate or building speculation, and then a huge bust, every 18 years. And it was as regular as clockwork. 1818, 1836, 1854, and so on, 1869, 1888, 1908, and then the one after that was 1924. I found that quite interesting to have a look at, because we're at 1991 in Australia, and I thought there could easily be another 18-year cycle because we're right at the bottom. And so I then went ahead and researched further in the US. I found some books written by Homer Hoyt, 100 Years of Land Values in Chicago. I searched another real estate planning economist called Roy Wenslick in St. Louis that had also been writing about these particular cycles. And I formulated a clock for the real estate cycle. And so I had this 10, maybe longer years ago, and I found since 1800, certainly since the Second World War, real estate right around the world has exhibited a very clear and very cyclical behaviour. And if you start from the bottom on the reading the clock here. I won't go into it too much today because we won't have enough time, but starting from the bottom on this side, you then go around this particular side on the inside of the clock. You get ready for the boom, you get the rents rising, then you get it's more profitable to start building, then you get the land boom as you go around. Each cycle, that takes about 7 years. Then to the outside of the clock you get a land boom, the world's tallest buildings go up, another 7 years into the bottom, and the bottom will last 4 years. That cycle's been as regular as clockwork since 1800. So, myself, I'm interested mostly in the stock market, and you can see quite clearly, if we go from the bottom of the last 18-year cycle, this is the Dow, and it's the US stock market, the Dow, starting right from the January of 1991, very clear cycle to 2009. And I'm quite happy to be able to tell you it's been fantastic from my point of view. Myself and quite a number of subscribers, we knew that downturn was coming. Not only did we know that downturn was coming, but more particularly we knew when it would happen based on the 18-year cycle. Myself and quite a number of subscribers retired on that down move. And so, to cut a long story short, just as far as the 18-year cycle goes, now remember why we're trying to do this. I was trying to give myself a picture of what might happen each year going forward in the economic picture so that I might make better business decisions and better investment decisions for my own process and also the subscribers that followed me over the last 15 or so years. At the moment, the way to read the market, and this is what I'm finding that absolutely nobody can understand. You've seen the last couple of weeks where we've had a major downturn, or perhaps not a downturn, but it looks like we might be going into some sort of downturn. But we've had a major secondary crisis after the first one happened in 2009. The way to read that going forward is that's the bottom that was made in 2009. You can see at the moment, despite all the bad news that's coming out about the economy, about commodity prices and about the stock market and about real estate, you can see, and this is the current chart of the Dow, you can see that the Dow at the moment, the lows it's making at the moment are higher than this one and higher than that one, which tells you, and as long as over the course of the next year, and again I can't show you all the history today, but over the course of the next year, as long as that next low stays above this low, the 18-year real estate cycle, the past one, is all over and we're moving into the next one. Just quickly, I put all of that into a book called The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking. In your delegates bag you will have quite a small little leaflet, so if you want to follow that up, if you just have a look at the delegates bag, there's a little handout in there which you can do. Just showing you one past cycle before we move on to what I really wanted to talk about today. The 1932 cycle, of course, this is the Dow from 1910 to about 1934-35. Can you see again, 1914 was the low there, and 1932 the eventual low of the Depression, 18 years, cycle to cycle. This has been happening for a long time now, and I find it's a very good way to read the general economy. And you can see here, you knew back in those days, you knew things were getting worse. Once the low of the crash, once that broke, then things kept going downwards. You knew it was getting worse. So that's the way to read the current environment, is to follow where this next low will end up.